running about 2,000 agents, and we were doing about a little more than 20,000 deals a year. So I saw too many agents fail in this business. I strictly use them to refer all my buyers to, because I was definitely not a buyer's person.
What would be your one advice that you think that would push them over the hill?
Have patience. It doesn't come overnight by any stretch of the imagination. Why? Because they never learned to think bigger. The reason why they don't succeed is they have no real reason. They were never given the tools. And if they weren't willing to go through the exercise and really work at it, then there is no reason for them to be there.
All right, guys, we have another great edition of the Phone Warriors podcast. We have John Joseph, aka JJ, as I was known to, understand of his excellence in the coaching game. And also being an amazing agent. JJ, welcome to the Phone Warriors Nation.
Listen, I am excited to be here, both Dan and Rich. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's just kick it right off and just get right into it with a little bit of your backstory. So for people that don't know who JJ is, who John Joseph is, tell them how you got started and how you got into the business.
Sure. I've been in the business now going on 24 years. I came out of the corporate world, started my business, my real estate business, I think at pretty much the age of right around 42, 45, somewhere around there. So I was not born into this by any stretch. But as an agent, after my first about 3 years or so, made my way up to about 100 deals, became a branch manager for a company, Prudential at the time, that was losing money hand over fist. We took that branch from 180th in the nation to #1 within 18 months, became a vice president of sales for Berkshire Hathaway, running about 2,000 agents, and we were doing about a little more than 20,000 deals a year. Wow. And then, of course, became a coach for the Mike Ferry organization, and unfortunately got tongue cancer. So here I am after my surgery.
Wow. Well, sending you good vibes and energy for sure. Can you speak a little bit about your your path as an agent and how you transition into the coaching world?
Well, the way it started, first of all, I'm a huge fan of coaching. I don't care what coaching company you use. I believe that coaching helps agents look at things that they don't necessarily see, and it pushes agents to do more with a higher level of accountability. As an agent, I found it hugely impactful, hugely. And if it wasn't for my coaching that I received as an agent, honestly, I probably wouldn't have gotten through my cancer surgery. I would never have recovered from it like I actually have. So going from being an agent to a branch manager, which is nothing more than glorified coaching, let's be clear, that's all that is. One of the things I learned about real estate is that there are way too many messages out there, and way too many ways to do business that it confuses the heck out of agents. So I was always a fan of that one message. If you accept it, great, let's move forward. If you're not, go ahead, do what you want to do, right? So that I found there was a huge need for that in our industry, and that's what actually got me into coaching. So I saw too many agents fail in this business.
So was that when you were at Berkshire Hathaway trying to coach the agents within the organization that you were seeing failing? Or was
that's one of the reasons I took that position when it was offered to me. I mean, at the time I was doing 100, 125 deals a year. I was making damn good money. So you would want to go to be a branch manager.
and that's a lot of
goes for that brain damage.
That's true.
Watch, there's a need. We all have some type of calling. And, at that point in my life, I said, this is my opportunity to help other people succeed. That's all it was. It wasn't overly complicated.
It clearly had nothing to do about the income that you're making at 125 deals a year to go down to, 50.
Well, let's be clear. Back then in Las Vegas, where I practiced, the average commission check was only $4,000. All righty.
Wow.
Figure it out.
Yeah. But I mean, and then how were you set up, by the way, JJ? Were you like multiple assistants, showing agents? You have a team. What was it looking like?
No, it was me. It was an assistant, and I had two agents were not on my team. I strictly used them to refer all my buyers to because I was definitely not a buyer's person.
Mm.
The only buyers I would handle would be commercial buyers, and I never saw them and rarely talked to them.
Mm.
So it was me, one assistant, and two buyers agents that I referred business to, but they were not on my team.
Got
All
it.
right. How did you have trust in them that they were going to be able to close out the opportunities?
It took a while. Let's put it that way. I probably went through about 10 or 15 agents before I settled on these two. And one of the things that my coach taught me is I'm going to have to coach them. I just can't abdicate. You know, I'm going to have to bring them in once a week, hold them accountable. All right, last week, each received whatever it was, 4 leads. Give me the update. What are the challenges? And then I'd help them with the challenges. It got to the point where they could still do their own business, but it got to the point where they were making enough money just getting referrals from me. They didn't have to do their own business.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I didn't have the responsibility of, them being on my team. Didn't have to deal with that.
That's great. And like for yourself, because a lot of agents think that it's a unicorn to do 100 deals, 125, 150, 200 deals. Like to the brand new agent to the experienced agent, I think there's a correlation between the two. What would your advice be if you were to give one outside of the coaching aspect where you said get a coach, but what would be your one advice that you think that would push them over the hill?
Have patience. It doesn't come overnight by any stretch of the imagination. You have to do the work. You have to have patience because as you do the work, you will continue to learn what works, what doesn't work, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But it's not going to happen tomorrow. But you have to put a lot of work in initially. I got a coach right away. He told me to make 40 contacts a day. And I will tell you, at first, I didn't do that. And I wasn't learning anything, nor was I making any headway. But when I actually started to do the work and followed what that person said, that coach said at the time, all of a sudden I started learning things and making a ton of mistakes, screwing up, forgetting my name, not knowing how to do a presentation. You name it, I did it. You just have to have patience with yourself. Give yourself a break and understand you're not going to know everything tomorrow. It's going to take a few years. It'll take 2, 3, 4 years just to get it.
So going back to your example, John, you mentioned something I thought was, to me, very, very interesting about accepting the message and having that one message that a lot of agents seem to, because it seems like, we are building this community Phone Warriors, right? That is about prospecting based, the highest level, having not just one coaching company, but multiple, coaches or trainers that can, come into the mold and prospect with us. Now, why do you feel like it's so difficult though for agents to accept the message that they're given? And especially like with, let's say, MFO that you were with before, or what your coaching company is doing now?
I think it's difficult for agents to accept the message because it requires real work. And that's not their expectation when they get into this business. I mean, let's be clear, when you all got into the business, before you got into it, were you really excited about prospecting? Did you understand that it was prospecting? Or did somebody tell you, oh, you'll be great at real estate. You love houses and you love people.
Yeah.
We all heard that same message a billion times. And now what's even worse in today's world, they watch HGTV.
Yeah.
And they think that's reality. So the message, one of the reasons why agents don't accept the message all the time is because their expectation was that they didn't have to work a lot. They'd make a lot of money. And if you're going to get into this business, understand it's just going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of rejection, a lot of embarrassment. You're going to screw up a lot. And that's the best thing you could possibly do.
Yeah, trial and error. Exactly. That's where, a lot of the growth happened for myself. like you said, you kind of just have to hear, see, and do, and then eventually 4, 5, 6 years later, it kind of clicks.
Well, yeah, it's one of the biggest things. Agents have to learn to take action on a consistent basis, regardless about how they feel about it. If you're motivated enough, you will take the actions. A quick story. When I first took over Prudential, that first branch, we had 300 agents in that branch. Within the first probably 8, 9 months, I terminated half of them.
Whoa.
Now, the owner was not exactly very happy with me, but there was a consistent theme with all of those agents that I terminated. They had no reason to succeed. And when there's no motivation, you're not going to do the work. It's just that simple.
Now, how did you determine that? Like, what was your questioning? How did you interview them to understand that?
Great. So I would take a look at their business plan that they made and stuck in a drawer a month before, right? It's like, get out your business plan. You said you wanted to make whatever, $150,000. What does that mean to you? What is that going to get you? 9 out of 10 times, those agents couldn't answer the question. I would get the standard, financial freedom. Well, what the heck's that mean? Financial freedom. Doesn't mean a damn thing. So I would make them go, I would ask them, not make them, I would ask them, although some of them felt like I was making them do this. But there was an exercise that I learned from the book, I think it was called The Power of Focus. It's an old book, I think it was by Jack Canfield, a billion years ago. But I would ask them to write out 100 things that they wanted to be, do, or have. And I said, I don't care how simple it is. It could be as easy as cleaning out the junk drawer in your kitchen. I really don't care. I just want you to write down 100 things. And I would tell them the first 10 or 20 things are going to be the dutiful things. Put tires on my car, pay down my credit card bill, all that stuff. But after 20 things, it got really difficult for them. Why? Because they never learned to think bigger. And I always ask them, what class in grammar school did you learn to dream? What class in high school? What class in college? Nobody can answer that question. So the reason why they don't succeed is they have no real reason. They were never given the tools. And if they weren't willing to go through the exercise and really work at it, then there is no reason for them to be there. I'd rather put somebody else in that chair who's going to do something.
Now, with exactly what you're saying, it also comes with, I think correlation to a strong mindset, right?
Absolutely.
Where a lot of people correlate that thinking big aspect as well as wanting to be able to achieve the business plan that they put together. So, you mentioned earlier before, like, being in the real estate coach helped you get through your cancer. And you also said that you did 100+ transactions, and you kind of hinted towards a mindset over there. And then now you're re-hinting this. So like, talk about that, for a successful agent or just anybody in general.
Well, it was interesting when I went through my battle with tongue cancer, and mind you, they told me you will never speak professionally again.
Wow.
That's what
Here we are.
I was like, really? I speak for a living.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So, I could either accept what they said, or I could take what I learned from real estate. And I actually went back to some of my old notes and I dug them out and I rewrote them in my scribble here. And there was a couple points that were really important to me as a real estate agent, which actually helped me with the whole cancer thing. And the first point, Rich, was, you have to visualize what you're really trying to accomplish. And it kind of goes back to that whole motivation thing. If you can't put yourself in the place that you want to be, if you can't see it, if you can't get emotionally attached to it, it's not real. You could tell me you want to earn $100,000 all day long. I really don't care. Tell me emotionally, how are you attached to that 100 grand?
Your lifestyle change, if you want to buy a new car, a new house,
Whatever.
something for your family. You want to go spend it on a watch, whatever it might be. There's got to be a reason for it.
I remember as an agent, I saw one of my mentors at the time prospect from the beach. I said, I want to do that. I mean, it was small, but you know what? In the summertime, once I eventually, when I got emotionally attached to that and the excitement around that, right, it caused me to say, what do I have to do to make that work? What skills do I need to have to allow me to drive down to the beach on Wednesday night, right? And then Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning, get up and literally sit on the beach. Now, don't visualize this, me in a bathing suit. Don't do that. Okay. But sit on the beach with my Motorola 550 flip phone back then, okay, and start to prospect.
Wow.
Once I got attached to that, all of a sudden things started to fall into place. Did I lose you guys?
No, we're still here.
We're listening.
For some reason, it went blank on my side. Sorry. Yeah, so it's that visualization, Rich, and that emotional attachment to what you're trying to achieve. And let's go back to the word motivation again, right? That helped me get to where I wanted to be in the real estate world, but also after my tongue surgery. Because my visualization was, okay, I can't speak right now. My mouth is packed full of stuff. My neck was wrapped in gauze from all the surgery. But my thought process at the time was, I got to be talking within a year.
Wow.
And I had to visualize what it was like to stand up in front of a group of, 700 people, 500 people, whatever it is, a kitchen full of people, I don't care, and speak again. So it's that visualization, that emotional attachment of what you want to have, which actually drives you to want to do the things that you have to do to succeed.
Well, it's amazing, John, that you're talking like this, because I think it just shows the power of the coaching and the training that you had. That I heard a good saying from like a Navy SEAL before, where it was like you default to your training when you're in when you're in a crisis mode, and the fact that you did that is amazing. That I feel like I want everyone to hear that. That's actually listening to this on all the channels. And John, I'm gonna take a little bit of a kind of it's like a fun question and kind of like an eye-opening thing. Can you share, no matter how uncomfortable Rich is going to feel, what it was like coaching Rich back in the day, if you remember, and how, because you were really the reason that I kept hearing your name, that he scaled from, I think it was like 40, 50 deals at the time, and then he literally broke out to over 100 within like a year and a half to 200. I don't know, what the hell did you guys talk about, and what did you see in him that he didn't know in and of himself to not have you in his life?
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that, so I'm interested to hear, but I know the answer right off the rip.
Well, if you know the answer, what is it, Rich? With it.
I mean, it just, when you listen to something and you can kind of like, hey, that's exactly what it was. It was actually the belief within him to instill it in me that everything was practical. And I would say for 8 years straight that every call was always about mindset, right? And no matter how good I thought that I was in that mode of that I understood it, he would always break it out, which I wasn't. And then to go back to his last point earlier in the day was, if he gave a lead to somebody, he would have a meeting with them every week to say, hey, where is this going on? So every 5 minutes, he always took time to be like, all right, what deals you have going on? Where are you going to get your next deal from? And are you tracking your business? And then just look at my tracker. He would go on my tracker really quickly, notate really quickly. This is where we're going to focus on. So he had like a blueprint for me. And then we just worked on a strong mindset.
Good answer.
I mean, what is your perception, John? Like, how did you, because there's always two sides of the story. I would love to hear this answer.
Agree with 100% of that. But one of the things that separated Rich from the most people is that he actually did what his coach said or asked of him, which is come to the call with 2 damn questions. because I know when you come to the call questions, he actually did the work. Because when agents come to a call when I ask them, what questions do you have for me? I don't have any. Well, I know they didn't do the darn work. I had agents I was coaching who were doing 400 deals a year that had 3, 4, 5 questions every week, right? But the agents doing 2 deals a year, oh, I have no questions. So that was one great thing about Rich. He would always come to the call with great questions, which proved, 1, that he did the work, but 2, that he was actually engaged in his business and wanted to know how just to take one more small step. Rich wasn't looking to go from step 1 to step 92. He was looking to go from step 1 to step 2. Because in order to get to 92, you have to go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth and so on, which made him a great coaching client, but also a great agent.
So it sounds like you really kept them focused, and that's the power of the focus and what you just talked about with that book and everything. And it seems to be the theme that I'm understanding, along with the visualizing your success and everything else you just talked about. Now, going from step 1 to step 2 and having that kind of mindset that you gave to him, I'm curious then, with everyone listening to this, then with all the distractions that we have, John, in our life today, what would you recommend, or what advice would you give to someone who's saying, you know what, they may not tell you right up front that they're distracted, but you could just hear from what the work they're doing and the results. And how do you get them an agent to keep that focus like you did with Rich for so long?
Funny story. I had a gentleman out of Arizona. He's probably 65, 67 years old. Did a lot of deals. But as I was checking his numbers, I could see a decline. And I would say, all right, what's going on? He says, well, what do you mean what's going on? Well, I see by your numbers that your contact rate is dropping from 20 a day down to like 6. What the hell are you doing? Nothing. I just don't come back from my breaks or whatever it happened to be. So I said, good, here's what I want you to do. I want you to text me every hour. So he started at 8 o'clock his time and texted me all the way up to noontime. One of the things we found out that he was playing on social media during his break and got sucked right in, right? And just never came back from his breaks. It was always very interesting. But, it's interesting when you track numbers and you ask very pointed questions, it kind of backs people into to use a real estate term, into a cul-de-sac where they can't get out, right? So tracking numbers, asking very pointed questions or directed questions to basically block them in so they have no choice but to tell you the truth. Sometimes it takes a while to make that happen. And some people say that's not fair. But I say, hold on, you hired a coach to help you get from point A to point B, and we can't get you to point A. So let's figure it the hell out.
Interesting.
I think Rich, correct me if I am wrong on this, because after the surgery, I forgot some things. At one point, you were frustrated with your buyer's agents, and they were not generating or not following up or whatever.
Correct.
And I think it took 1 or 2 steps. I asked you to do 1 or 2 things with them to get them more accountable and make them more profitable for you. And once again, it's not like, is that correct? That was with you, right?
That was with me right before.
And it was always simple steps. Here's an interesting story, Dean. We overcomplicate this business way too much. I had a gentleman from a company that I work with call me and say, I need a script on how to explain the buyer broker agreement. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I already gave you a paragraph for the agents to memorize. Tell them to memorize that. Well, they need more. No, they don't. They're just fearful because you haven't role played enough with them to make them comfortable with it. So what do they try to do? They try to make a mountain out of a damn molehill. This whole new NAR thing, buyer broker agreement thing, you could summarize it in one darn paragraph explaining it to a buyer. But no, everybody wants some big old complicated formula. No, there's no complicated formula. Here's a one paragraph script. Memorize the damn thing, understand it, and use it. And
Sure.
as you screw it up, you'll learn and you do it again with the next buyer. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Breaking everything down to very small, understandable, where you as the agent can explain, and then you as the agent can receive. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's going to make you more successful, and it's going to make the other person more successful.
One of the most common things I used to hear when I would get a new client would be, all right, I have a year's contract. I want you to make me, a 70 deal a year producer in a year.
Wow.
I was like, go find another company. It's not going to happen. I mean, there are a couple people that could do that, but that's usually not the norm.
Interesting. And what do you need to see in that example that what if they had high energy, enthusiasm, they had a great database, they had all the things, and what makes you say, okay, you know what? Let's take a step back and let's actually be realistic about this, and to say that truth, which I feel like a lot of people are saying, I've heard agents say, well, he didn't believe in me, so I went to a different company, or I went to a different coaching company, whatever else. What do you say to those agents then?
Yeah. I say, listen, I think 70 deals is a great goal. Would you agree that you don't know much about the real estate business right now? If they were new, they'd say, yeah, great. So could we shoot for 70, but let's not be disappointed if it doesn't happen until your second year or after your second year? Then they usually be okay with something like that. I said, let's just shoot for 5 deals, because we have to get through the number 5 to get to 70. And then after 5, we'll shoot for 10, because guess what? 10 is on the way to 70. And then let's shoot for 30, because 30 is on the way to 70. Just keep it simple.
Yeah. So John, I have one, you got me a lot of questions today, which is great. So one thing I'm curious, a lot of agents in our Phone Warriors community, and we get questions all the time now about, oh, hey, I like that approach or whatever. Anyway, there's a lot of agents that are basically years in the business. They're not even new.
Yeah.
And they are we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the business. And they're showing up. I'm seeing them on the Zooms. I'm seeing them, do what they have to do. What do you say to those agents that are they're saying they want to break out from 15, 20 deals to get to the 50 plus? And what have you found in all of your coaching experience has been the main thing that is stopping that growth from happening?
I've answered that question in the first 5 minutes. They have no reason to do it.
So it all comes back to that.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
I have coached 60 to 65 people every week. Every week. And would go out and speak. And even with the agents, when I was running 2,000 agents, it was always the same thing. If you don't have a reason, you're not going to do it. Everybody's looking for some great, phenomenal answer. There is none. There is none. Do you have a reason? And if so, can you clearly describe that reason to me and tell me why you're emotionally attached to it? Because if you're not emotionally attached to it, you're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. I remember my coach asked me, what's one thing that you want to buy when you have, XYZ success? I don't remember what the number was at the time. And I said, I want a really cool convertible. He says, great, we're going to work towards that convertible. And that's all we did, is we focused on the convertible. We didn't focus on anything else. How much money I've saved up for your convertible? That was his answer. Now, the car I bought at the time was $110,000. And I walked in with cash. They didn't know what to do with the money, mind you. that part. And we didn't have Zelle back then, but I bought myself a brand new Jag convertible at the time. And I was loving life, but it's all about what you want to have or achieve in your life. I had one lady, she wanted to build a library in Ethiopia. That's where she was from originally. And that was her biggest motivation. So we worked towards that. I had one lady that wanted to upgrade her bathroom. I said, okay. I said, what's the bathroom going to cost you? $55,000. Okay. Her average commission check was only $2,000, so it's a bunch of deals we had to do to get there.
Yeah.
But it's nothing more than a bunch of stepping stones.
Yeah, and you're not really judging anyone's reason, like, you know, whatever it is they're doing, they just gotta get something, is what we're talking about, right? So yeah.
You can get into this business not to make money. You hear agents say, I'm not in it to make money. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
You're here to make money. Because if you're not in it to make money, come work for me and I won't pay you. But I will work. They all say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, okay.
That is true, you know. And a lot of people, like, you know, you touched upon this, but how do you dream bigger? How do you think bigger in like respect to wanting to get that? Like, yeah, building a library is a very big thing. But like, what do you tell agents that like, you know, if something's very small, it's like, all right, you achieve your car, now what? You know,
Right.
like, get them to the next step.
Great question. I always tell them, because when I give them that 100 things exercise to do, they always come back to me, oh, I only got 30. Good. Go on Google, put in 100 things I want to achieve in the next 5 years. You would be amazed how many people post that kind of stuff up online. I said, go online and get inspired by what other people are looking for. I said, you just never know. Even though you might not want it, it sounds good right now. Because here's the kicker. I always ask them, put 100 things together that you want to be, do, or have. If you can't come up with 100, go steal somebody else's ideas that sound good at least. And then I start asking them to achieve 3 things every month. Because I want to get them in the habit of learning how to win. So I said, good, what 3 things could you achieve within the next 30 days? You know, is it cleaning out the junk drawer, or cleaning out your closet, or putting $500 extra towards a credit card bill, whatever it happens to be. And then the next month, the same thing, next month. And I make them do that for 6 months. And then after 6 months, I make them rewrite the whole list again. And they always ask me why. I said, because you've learned to think bigger. You learned that you could accomplish these things that you wrote down that you said you wanted. And I always ask, well, why the heck haven't you done it already? If these are the things you want, why haven't you done them? Because nobody pushed them. Right? So every month for 6 months, accomplish 3 things. After 6 months, rewrite the whole list. And all of a sudden, that list becomes much quicker to them. Interesting thing, Rich. When I go out to speak, one of the first things I do if I'm doing like business planning or something like that is I make everybody write down 50 things they want to be, do, or have in the class. And it's interesting. Every time I do that, I see big smiles. People's faces light up. And I ask them, why are your faces lighting up? Well, I'm excited about some of these things. Well, if you're so excited, why the heck haven't you done it already? Does any of this make sense? Right? It's a process, right? 3 things a month, 3 things a month. Learn to win on small levels until you get up to the point where you can start doing bigger things. Does that answer your question, Rich?
Of course it does. 100% answers the question.
How much being around the right people, John, do you feel like it gets you the exposure to think bigger as well? Or if that has any bearing on it?
It's huge. It is huge. when I used to set up little groups, they were called coaching groups, obviously. When I was running the branches, I would always the groups would never be more than 8 people. 4 of them would be at a given level, but 4 of them would also be at a higher level. Everybody was always in a group with somebody that was doing more than they were. And I'm not saying going from 30 to 100, 30 to maybe 50. And then if you're in a 50 group, 50, you were hanging out with people that were doing 80, something that was attainable so you could start learning what their thought processes are. So I think that's huge, huge. I mean, groups like this that you do is an outstanding service to agents. I don't know if they all take advantage of it, but they should.
Yeah. Well, Rich and I do have many conversations around agents that are, always asking questions, but then, they don't show up as much as we would like. So that's a works in progress, which I'm sure you've experienced countless times in your career. And I actually I'll be honest, a little admission right now for you, John, as a coach, I would say I was definitely naive to think that people worked as hard as Rich and I do, and even yourself, right? And I think that is like kind of like the one of my last questions, which is like, if you were to take a time machine back of yourself in your life, knowing what you know now about everything you've been through, from the cancer, from the building the businesses to the agent stuff to everything, and you could say one thing to yourself in your 20s, let's say you're 25, 26 years old, what are you telling yourself back then that you wish you knew now?
Keep your ego out of it.
Okay.
Ego is the #1 killer.
So can you give us an example, John, of that? Like what's a good example in your life that you've had ego where you're like, wow, that would have saved me like a few years of my life almost?
I have a great example. I came out of the corporate world. I was a corporate operations manager for a Fortune 100 company. And I knew a lot about training, et cetera, et cetera. When I went to my first office, they were, of course, teaching us MFO scripts back then. And I decided, because I knew everything, I came from the corporate world, I was going to rewrite the scripts.
Nice.
After about a month and a half of getting absolutely no result, I go back to the broker and I said, I think I want to be a buyer's agent. He said, what? I said, this isn't working. He says, well, what the hell are you doing? I see you here every day. You're working, but what are you doing? So I told him, I said, here's a script that I'm using. He said, what the hell's this? I said, well, it's my script. He said, that's not what I gave you. He took my script, he tore it up, he gave me another copy of the expired script. He says, I want you to go downstairs now, and I want you to get on the phone and read the darn thing word for word. That was my first expired listing I ever took.
Wow.
First, and I just followed it word for word. And I remember the guy's name. His name was Vladimir. And when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? He shouts to his wife, it's another realtor. You want to list the home? He said, yeah, come over. Oh, okay. If I did not move my ego out of the way and just did what my broker, who was my coach at the time, said, I would have never gotten anywhere in this business. Ego needs to go away.
Powerful.
Wow. And to take the tail end of the ego and, time machine back, what do you want your legacy to be known as? When you're no longer here and, past coaching clients, your family, everybody, what do you want John Joseph to be known as?
Somebody that cared and helped people move forward. That's all it is.
Love it.
When I first got out of the hospital, I wasn't sure of my future whatsoever. I mean, physically, I was a wreck. Mentally, I was a wreck. But I finally decided that, you know what? Yeah, I've helped a lot of people, but that's all well and good. That's in people's heads. So that's Rich when I decided to write that book.
That was what I was going to talk about, the book, yeah. Your coaching company. So let the viewers know about the book that you wrote. Which I read. A lot of it sounds very familiar over the years. but explain it.
So the book is called 365 Days of Real Estate Wisdom. And it's not a book that you read front to back. It is a daily inspiration book.
Wow.
And let's be honest what this is. They were my damn coaching notes. When I used to take notes from after I was done my coaching call, I'd write down what I learned. And I had bunches of them. I had hundreds of them over the years. And when I took over the branch, I realized that, of course, all these 300 agents had 300 different messages going on. So I would start taking those coaching notes and send them out every day. I modified them, obviously, for the audience, but I would send those out every day to help focus the thought process and the message. So they got one message. When I wrote the book, I said, you know what? Even if I don't make it because of all this cancer, at least I will have something out there that hopefully moves agents forward on a day-to-day basis. It's not a how-to book. It's a what the heck I should be thinking about each day book.
Yeah,
And
which is a little bit different. I love that.
Yeah. Rich, did you buy the book yet?
Yeah, I got it on my Kindle. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't like the Kindle
Well,
version.
for everyone that it doesn't know, I just bought my version on Amazon right now. So
there you go. $22. You guys could afford it. But it's just a matter of, you open up to today, whatever today's message is, there's a little quote. And how does that quote apply to what we do as real estate agents? How does it affect your mindset? How does it affect what you should be doing? And just about every entry has a call to action. Go out, go do X, Y, and Z. Don't be sitting on your ass at home, hoping and wondering if you're ever going to get good at this stuff. Go out and do it. So, Rich, I want to be known for, since, you have a decent memory, Rich, because you remember more than I do, right? About our coaching relationship. Part of it because I was in surgery for so long. But I wanted to actually memorialize a lot of stuff of what I learned and what I've experienced and put it into that daily inspiration book.
That's great. I've read countless messages, and it's all, there's been times where I took a step away from coaching because I couldn't find the right coach after you, believe it or not. And I've relied on the recordings and the notes and going back to that. So I see a lot of that in the books that I've been reading.
Yep. Good.
So that's great. And then, if people want to learn more, you can talk real quick about your coaching programs that you have or company, and how they can find you.
Thank you for that. Yes, you could find me. Can I give a phone number? Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Go for it.
People could call me directly at area code 702-992-0800. 702-992-0800. Rich, you recognize that line as my coaching line for years, right? Never changed. But people could call me directly. I coach on a very limited basis because I can only speak for a few hours a day right now. I went from not speaking at all to working my way up to about 4 hours of total clarity where people could understand me. I don't go on video a lot because my facial expressions are still a little odd because of the way I have to modify my speech because of, I'm missing half a tongue. What do you want? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But so I do coaching on a part-time basis. I have a very limited group of people, but if you're interested, give me a call, even if it's just for hey, how do I get through X, Y, and Z? More than happy.
And then, John, what's the website that people can go to learn more?
Yeah, the letter I, successtraining.com. iSuccesstraining.com.
Perfect.
And it's a website we just built. It's very basic. It was more for the book than anything else. But one of the things we're doing right now is I know, and once again, there's too many messages out there. A lot of the presentations that I did for my own company, I am now making videos of video training and actually using AI because I can't do it myself anymore. But we're putting together some training modules for agents to either learn about real estate and what to do, or for senior agents, just as a refresher course as to what the heck you got to get back to. And it covers everything from, why skills are important, or where to find business, or unique ways of getting business. So it's interesting. It'll be fun once it's all put together.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Thank you, John. This has been great. This is awesome.
I appreciate you coming on and us and sharing us your wisdom and your knowledge.
Guys, I hope it was helpful. And for the folks that are out there, give me a call if you need help. Be more than happy to talk to anybody and help whoever I could help out.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, Dean. Thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
All right.